What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Happy New Year. Hopefully, if you're living in the Northeast, you're keeping warm. It's pretty brutal out there right now. Good opportunity to work on the layout and to showcase this train I got behind me right here. This actually belonged to my grandfather, so we're going to dive right into this. We're going to go back to the 1970s. Hope you like this. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Milwaukee Road passenger set that came out in 1973. This originally would have came as a 4-car set with a 442 Atlantic locomotive with the mighty sound of steam. I do not have the original locomotive. My grandfather did not have the locomotive either. But when you bought these cars separately, they came with coupons inside. So when you bought one, you would fill out the card, mail it in, and then you would get the next one in line. So I have almost all of the cars. I have the railway baggage car, City of Aberdeen, City of Minneapolis, City of Seattle, City of Tacoma, dining car, and President Washington observation car. Now this one right here is a little interesting. This one came out much later than the rest of the set. This came out sometime in the 1980s. It is entirely different. First of all, it's a totally different shade of orange. The couplers are completely different. The trucks are different. And also when this thing lights up at night, it's significantly brighter than the rest of the train, but it does go with the set. I even managed to find the optional FDR presidential campaign car at a train show a little while back. Same as the President Washington observation car, but this one has banners on the side. Vote Roosevelt for president on the windows. And there's also a little flagpole that hangs off the back too. Pretty cool. And there's only 3 cars to this set that I'm missing. I'm missing the railway post office car. Oddly enough, my grandfather was a mailman for 35 years. Kind of strange that he wouldn't have that car, but I found out, I did some research. Those 3 cars that I'm missing were the ones that came in the set with the locomotive. So I guess they were not offered separately. I'm missing the post office, the city of Chicago, and the city of Milwaukee. So hopefully, maybe one day at a train show I could get my hands on those. Now, my grandpa never had a proper locomotive to pull this train with. He would always pull it with his 2025, which is fine. It looks good behind a steam locomotive, but this is a Pennsylvania engine. Now, I had an engine in mind that would look really nice pulling this set, and I guess my grandfather had the same idea in mind. I was thinking the Milwaukee Road EP5 electric, and my uncle confirmed that that engine is in fact what he wanted and he never got. So, guess what just came in the mail? We're going to take a look at that right now. And here we have the Milwaukee Road EP5 electric. Got this on eBay for 125 bucks. I figured that wasn't that bad of a deal considering it comes with its original box. Still in pretty good shape. A little rip right here, not a big deal. These came out in 1976 and 1977, and I believe that these were intended to be used with this passenger set. Because, let's be honest, a little 442 Atlantic pulling a 910 car train, it's kind of overkill. It's a very heavy train for such a small engine. I think that's why they came out with this. Let's unbox this and see how it looks. Even has all of its original warranty information in the box. That's really cool. Now, they never called these EP5s. They called them Little Joes. And strangely enough, the Milwaukee Road actually never had an EP5 electric. I think only New Haven and Penn Central later on. But don't quote me on that. But I know for a fact Milwaukee Road never had an EP5. Okay, so it's in overall decent condition. Body's clean. Unfortunately, the spring for the front coupler here came off, and I don't see the E-clip in the box anywhere. And the tank on the bottom is loose, but we'll address that in just a second. What's really cool about this is the pantographs can actually be wired to be functional. So if you have an overhead wire, you can in fact run your engine with these pantographs. Now, as with every other old locomotive that I have, I'm going to take this apart, check all the grease, oil everything that needs to be oiled, and this thing will be back on the track in no time. Now, I say it's old, but, you know, I was born in the 90s. The 1970s ain't 30 years ago anymore. This thing's going on 50 years old, and it's definitely going to need some cleaning up. This is probably the easiest locomotive on the planet to take apart. One screw. That's all you need to take off. One screw on one side, and it slides right apart. Now, obviously, this is a very bare bones locomotive. Keep in mind, this is the MPC era. They were just kind of starting to figure things out right around this time. So, no, it does not have a horn. It does have an E-unit. It does have a pull-more motor. Obviously, no magnet traction. It does have traction tires on it. It's got some pretty decent weight to it, so it'll pull those cars no problem. I think the thing I like the most is you could completely take these trucks apart. This lifts right off. Exposes all the guts of this. Does have plastic gears, but as far as I see, I don't see any cracking, which is good. Clean out this old grease, grease these bushings right here, put it all back together, and see where we go. All right, this cleaned up pretty good. There's actually surprisingly no oil residue in this thing at all, but it rolls nice and free now. I'm using Labelle, because it says that it doesn't damage nylon gears. That's what you want on these older ones. Okay, and the procedure for taking this motor apart is exactly the same as the post-war locomotives. This thing barely had any runtime because look at these brushes. These things look fantastic. Even this, the commutator, doesn't look bad at all. Well, they must have really liked to run these things dry because I can't find a drop of grease or oil on any part of this motor. Even this. Like, this is probably as close to brand new as I've seen. Now, usually what I use to clean the commutator face, I'll use a pencil eraser, but I went on Amazon and I picked up a 3-pack of these fiberglass pencils. Best investment I think I've ever done. It gets this down to just the bare copper, leaves it shiny, and doesn't leave anything behind. I think the end result speaks for itself. What do you think? That's probably the easiest motor overhaul I've ever done. This turns over so nice now. Use just a little drop of 107 on the motor shaft and 106 grease on the ball bearings. Should keep this thing running nice and smooth for many more years. All right, so here we are about 2 weeks after the fact. Remember how I said none of the gears were broken? Well, they weren't actually broken, but the main drive gear, unfortunately, the teeth that engaged the motor, they were pretty much gone. So the gear was just free spinning and it wasn't creating any, wasn't making any friction to get this thing moving. So with the help of trains.com, Trains with a Z, they had a whole bunch of these things in stock. So I just ordered a handful of them. I'm sure this ain't going to be the last MPC locomotive I have that has that style drive gear. So about 10 seconds worth of work, pop the new gear on, and seems to be holding pretty good. The fuel tank, remember I said the fuel tank was loose? Well, it's got 4 plastic pins on there. So all I did was take a torch lighter and a screwdriver and just mash those 4 pins in. That's holding pretty solid now. And the 2 couplers on here are completely different. One's held together with an E-clip. The other one's just kind of held together with a friction clip. So all I did, same thing, torch lighter, bent the 2 pins out, put the washer back on, and seems to be holding pretty well. I don't see any issue with that. Let's put some power on the track, see how this thing runs. Now before we get this train moving, let me talk about this real quick. Remember how I mentioned I bought the MTH-WTIU system? Well, the problem that I seem to notice that people keep having is they run it off of their home Wi-Fi. I'm going to tell you right now, don't do that. Run it off of the built-in MTH DCS Wi-Fi and get yourself one of these cheap ON tablets. I did this because Nick's Crossing actually did the same thing. Get this off of Walmart.com. I think I paid like $38 for this tablet. It's just your basic Android tablet. I'm not big on Androids. I'm more of an iPhone guy, but it does what it needs to do. All this does is run my layout and nothing more. There's no messaging, there's no phone calls, there's no nothing. All it does is just operate my layout. And ever since I did that, this thing has been running absolutely flawless. Check out how smooth this is. I'm going to put some power to the track. You got your direction switch here. Now, obviously, if this thing had a horn or a bell, you would just hit the horn button or the bell button. You got your emergency stop here, plus and minus if you want to very fine tune how much power you're putting to the track. Well, there you have it. Not bad considering this thing's coming up on 50 years old. Well, I hope you guys really liked that short video. Almost like this locomotive was really intended to go with this set. I think it looks fantastic pulling these cars. And not only that, I'm just happy that I was able to find the locomotive that my grandfather was never able to get. Runs fantastic, and hopefully within the next coming months I can find those other 3 cars that he never had and complete this set in its entirety. That would be really cool if I could acquire those. Anyways, like, subscribe, make sure you're hitting that bell notification, and I will see you next time.